Good evening. You're now with me, Lorenzo Isaac, for TVS Nightline. We begin with the haze situation in Sarawak. Unhealthy air quality has gripped 9 locations across Sarawak today, triggering the Sarawak Disaster Management Committee (SDMC) to prepare a third round of cloud seeding operations. Its chairman, Dr. Amar Douglas Ugahambas, confirms Serian recorded the worst air pollutant index at a hazardous 182, closely followed by Kuching at 171 and Samarahan at 170. The targeted rain-making will prioritize critical dams and water catchments to safeguard the state's public water supply. A statement issued by UGA today says the operation will be done in collaboration with the National Disaster Management Agency (NADMA). However, execution remains subject to atmospheric conditions and suitable cloud formations determined by Met Malaysia. Other affected locations recording unhealthy API levels include Sri Aman, Serikei, Muka, Bintulu, Tebedu, and Lundu. UGA warns that prolonged dry spells heighten the risk of peatland and forest fires while threatening regional reservoir levels. The committee is working with the Fire and Rescue Department, Environment Department, and local utility agencies to prevent open burning and mitigate haze risks. Deputy Prime Minister Datuk Sri Fadilah Yusof is recovering well after undergoing successful double coronary artery bypass surgery at the National Heart Institute (IJN) on Wednesday. In a statement today, his office says Fadilah's family expressed their deepest appreciation to the IJN medical team for its professional care and expertise. IJN, in a separate statement, says Fadilah continues to show positive progress following the surgery on August 12th. IJN says the surgery was performed under its enhanced recovery after surgery protocol aimed at supporting early mobilization, reducing complications, and promoting faster recovery. The partnership between Kuching City FC and Affin Bank is set to drive Sarawak's regional ambitions, uniting football and banking to expand the state's footprint across ASEAN. Sarawak Premier Datuk Patinggi Tan Sri Abang Johari Tun Openg says both organizations share a drive for excellence capable of elevating Sarawak's profile on the international stage.
Kuching FC want to become the champion in football. Otherwise, we don't participate if we don't have that ambition to be champion. And Affin also want to be champion in banking. So, in other words, the two organizations will play its part, bringing the name of Sarawak to a higher level.
Abang Johari says KCFC should no longer be seen as just a local team, given its potential in competing with other teams in ASEAN. Citing KCFC's previous match against Johor Darul Ta'zim, he says the team's improvement is evident despite falling short of winning the title.
Tapi saya rasa yang penting ialah tim kita boleh masuk melawan di peringkat ASEAN. Jadi kita si champion kampung lagi lah. Kita main menang boleh jadi peringkat champion ASEAN. Mudah-mudahan lah.
Abang Johari says the partnership between KCFC and AFFIN also reflects similar principles driving Sarawak's development, self-confidence and determination to pursue greater ambitions. He emphasizes that success depends not only on ability but also on the will to succeed and a clear strategy. Works Minister Datuk Sri Alexander Nanta Linggi has downplayed questions regarding his political future after announcing he will not defend the Kapit parliamentary seat in the next general election. Nanta stresses that he has made his position clear and is calling for greater focus on serving the public and executing ministry priorities. The Gabungan Party Sarawak Secretary General reaffirms that any decision regarding his next steps remains subject to internal party governance and processes. Speaking at a press conference in Kuching today, Nanta urged the media and public not to over-focus on his individual political transition. He says his priority remains on his ministerial duties and ongoing infrastructure development programs. Speculation surrounding Nanta's political direction mounted following his decision not to defend the Kapit parliamentary seat, which he has held since 1999. Reports indicate he may contest the proposed Malakun state seat if it is gazetted ahead of the next Sarawak state election. However, Nanta declined to elaborate further on future constituency plans, reiterating that the party decisions will follow proper procedures. He reminds stakeholders that public service delivery and governance matters must take precedence over political speculation. The 2026 Malaysia International Halal Showcase, or MIHAS, is opening broader avenues for Sarawakian entrepreneurs to penetrate the global market. Malaysia External Trade Development Corporation, MATRADE Deputy CEO of Export Acceleration, S. Jai Shankar, says cross-border access remains a key challenge, but mechanisms like a dedicated Sarawak pavilion will connect local firms with global buyers. He notes that while Sarawak is rarely associated with halal trade, its rich biodiversity gives it a unique competitive edge.
Sarawak has, oftentimes, perhaps a lot of people would not associate Sarawak with the halal ecosystem, but in fact, it has a tremendous amount of opportunity for it to be plugged into the global halal ecosystem. On a minimum, Sarawak is a very rich state in terms of biodiversity. Right? And the basis of halal is not halal alone, but halal also encompasses anything that is organic in nature, anything that is that's nature-based.
The export push extends overseas through missions like MIHAS at Shanghai, enabling local firms to pitch directly to Chinese buyers, while Sarawak Export Day strengthens state trade ties. Shankar says MATRADE also offers market mapping and its international sourcing program, INSP, to lower export risks while providing virtual access to industry insights.
We also have other components such as Knowledge Hub. Knowledge Hub is basically a coming together of speakers touching on topics related and relevant to the global halal ecosystem. And this can be basically accessed through virtually. So that means our Sarawakian companies can access all the issues and topics that will be discussed through the Knowledge Hub platform via virtually through the MDTP, the Madani Digital Trade Platform that MATRADE owns and operates.
By pairing halal with ESG compliance, Shankar believes Sarawak can target premium markets. He highlights MIHAS as a core engine for the state's 2026 to 2030 halal plan to become the premier Borneo halal hub. The Strait of Hormuz remains central to the US-Iran war, with oil flows and fuel price now becoming a top US priority. Attacks on vessels and threats of tougher economic measures are further escalating pressure on the vital waterway. More on this with Razi Ahmad.
Thanks, Lorenzo. Yet the United States' current priority in the Iran war has now shifted, with the focus no longer on Iran's nuclear program, but on bringing gasoline prices down for American consumers. The comment made by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance in an interview with Fox News underscores the reality that the war now centers on control over the Strait of Hormuz, a critical fuel supply conduit that remained open before Trump and Israel started the war in late February.
I know that oil is down today, and it's way down from the highs in the early days of the conflict. That's goal number one. Keep oil and gas cheap for Americans all over our country. And then obviously goal number two is ensure that Iran never gets a nuclear weapon.
Now, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, on the other hand, has threatened to subject Iran to economic isolation, with new measures expected next week. Now, Bessent describes a two-pronged approach: financial pressure and a physical blockade of the ports. Just days ago, Trump had said an agreement to reopen the strait was imminent. But now his administration seems to be digging in, with diplomacy on hold, as he hopes economic suffering will cause Iran to yield. The tougher stance contrasts with remarks by Bessent on August 4th, when he said an agreement with Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz could be reached within days.
So it will be a combination of economic isolation like the world has never seen before, and the continued blockade in the Strait of Hormuz that will keep anything from going in or out of the Iranian ports.
Now, the United Arab Emirates is blaming Iran for attacks on 2 vessels linked to its state-owned oil company as they passed through the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday. The UAE Foreign Ministry denounced what it called the hostile Iranian attack targeting 2 vessels affiliated with the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company ADNOC, with no injuries reported. Now, according to the official WAM news agency, ADNOC confirmed 2 of its vessels were attacked while transiting the waterway on Thursday evening. The situation was eventually brought under control. Now, as the war continues on, Kuwait remains a hostage to its uncompromising need to access the Strait of Hormuz as the country faces its largest crisis in decades. Now, oil has long been the bedrock for the tiny Gulf state's economy, where more than 90% of government revenue and nearly all export earnings rely on reliable crude sales. But unlike Saudi Arabia or the UAE, Kuwait has no pipelines bypassing the strait, forcing its crude exports to sail through the contested waterway to the international market. The Kuwait Petroleum Corporation CEO Nawaf Al-Sabah insists that the company is working tirelessly to execute contingency plans and said storage tanks outside the region have helped buffer the strait crisis. But even with such plans, the strait's fate remains crucial to Kuwait's future.
There is no substitute for Gulf hydrocarbons, and there is no substitute for freedom of navigation through the Strait of Hormuz. You can have all the pipelines in the world that you can build. You can have all of the storage capabilities that you build. But if you do not have free flow of hydrocarbons through the Strait of Hormuz and free navigation through the Strait of Hormuz, you will end up with another energy crisis very quickly.
And that's all the updates I have for now. Back to you, Lorenzo.
Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto has announced plans to shutter more than 750 unproductive state-owned enterprises by year-end, targeting entities he accused of faking profits. Addressing Parliament, Prabowo revealed that audit findings under the Danantara Sovereign Wealth Fund exposed over 1,000 state firms operating with little accountability. He mooted a special ad hoc court to investigate management decisions dating back 30 years while offering a potential amnesty for those who repent. The aggressive restructuring has already saved over $2.8 billion in overhead costs, with a goal of saving $4 billion by the end of the year. Despite broader economic headwinds and ongoing grave concerns, Prabowo reaffirmed his commitment to social welfare initiatives, including his signature free school meals programs, while projecting 6% GDP growth for 2026. At least 4 people perished in eastern Japan after unprecedented heavy rain left thousands stranded at Narita Airport overnight and disrupted roads and rail services. The torrential downpours late on Thursday also triggered landslide warnings and power outages, with forecasters issuing the highest level heavy rain warning for the Chiba region for the very first time. According to the Chiba Prefecture Disaster Management Office, the victims included an elderly man who was found floating in a flooded road and a 66-year-old woman who was found in her submerged car. The third fatality was a man of unknown age, found collapsed on the street, while the fourth was a person whose gender and age could not be determined. As of this noon, public broadcaster NHK reported that as many as 8 people may have died. Meanwhile, close to 26,000 households across Chiba Prefecture were without power. At the same time, around 6,000 people were stranded overnight at Narita, one of 2 main airports serving Tokyo, with many trains to and from. They cancelled until Friday afternoon. But as of Friday morning, all level 5 heavy rain warnings had been downgraded to level 4. Those were the updates on TVS Nightline. I'm Lorenzo Isaac. Thank you for watching and have a good night.